What if E.J. Demara's greatest victory is actually the beginning of his biggest nightmare? That is the question hanging over days of our lives right now, because E.J. may believe he is on the verge of doing the impossible. He may think he has finally outsmarted death, rewritten the rules, and given Abe and Theo the miracle they have been desperately hoping for. But in Salem, miracles rarely come without a cost. And the more this story starts to feel like a dream come true, the more it also starts to feel like the setup for something tragic. What makes this storyline so compelling is not just the science behind it. It is E.J.'s mindset. He truly believes he is in control. He believes progress means protection. He believes that because the experiment has worked this far, the danger must be fading. But on days of our lives, that kind of confidence is usually the moment when everything starts going wrong. And Paulina seems to understand that better than anyone. Her choice not to shut the experiment down is not a sign of trust. It is a sign of emotional conflict. She clearly has deep concerns about E.J. pushing beyond moral limits and acting like he can decide how far this should go. She knows this is dangerous territory. She knows there is something deeply unsettling about letting E.J. and Dr. Rolfe play with life and death. But she also knows what Lexi means to Abe and Theo. Paulina is not supporting the experiment because she feels safe about it. She is allowing it because the emotional cost of stopping it feels unbearable. If Lexi truly has a chance to wake up, then shutting everything down would make her the person who took that hope away. And that is a burden she may not be willing to carry. That is why this story feels so strong emotionally. It is not just about whether the experiment works. It is about what people are willing to ignore when love and grief get involved. Once Abe and Theo are given even the smallest reason to believe Lexi can come back, logic becomes much harder to hold onto. The ethical questions start fading. The long-term risks become easier to overlook. And the most important question of all starts getting buried beneath hope. If Lexi wakes up, does that really mean they are getting Lexi back? That may be the first real sign that this story is heading somewhere dark. Because the moment people stop questioning the cost of a miracle is usually the moment that miracle becomes dangerous. The most immediate way E.J.'s plan could fall apart is through the simplest possibility of all. Lexi wakes up, but her body cannot truly sustain what has been done to her. That is what makes this experiment so risky. E.J. may see waking Lexi as the finish line, but it may only be the beginning of a much more disturbing phase. Dr. Rolfe may have created something that appears successful on the surface, yet still leaves Lexi physically unstable underneath. And if that is the case, then the reunion everyone is hoping for could come with terrifying consequences. At first, the emotional high may be overwhelming. Abe may see Lexi open her eyes and believe he has been handed a miracle. Theo may feel like the impossible has finally become real. In those first moments, nobody is going to want to focus on what could still go wrong. They will want to embrace the joy, the relief, and the sense that somehow love has won. But that may be exactly when the danger begins. Because the show could easily let the reunion land first, then slowly introduce signs that something is not right. Lexi may seem unusually weak. She may struggle more than expected. She may suffer unexplained pain, physical distress, or sudden episodes that no one can fully account for. At first, those symptoms may be dismissed as part of recovery. Her loved ones may convince themselves that healing takes time. They may cling to optimism because the alternative is too painful to face. But if those warning signs keep building, then the tone of the story changes instantly. At that point, this is no longer a miracle story. It becomes a story about false hope. It becomes a story about people wanting something so badly that they ignore the evidence right in front of them. And that is where E.J.'s gamble starts to look truly tragic. Because if Lexi's body begins rejecting the treatment, or if the effects of Versavix come with consequences no one can stop, then EJ will have done something far worse than fail. He will have given Abe and Theo hope strong enough to heal them for a moment, only to shatter them all over again. And honestly, that is why this storyline feels so dangerous right now. The brighter the reunion looks at first, the more likely it is that Days is preparing to turn that joy into heartbreak. But the real danger in this storyline may not be physical at all. It may be psychological, because even if Lexi opens her eyes, that still does not guarantee Abe, Theo, and the rest of Salem are getting the same woman they lost. And honestly, that possibility may be even more unsettling than any medical complication. A body can return, but identity is much harder to restore. The show does not need Lexi to wake up completely unrecognizable to make this work. In fact, it may be stronger if the changes are subtle at first. A reaction that feels colder than expected. A look that lingers too long. A response that sounds right on the surface, but still feels emotionally off. Those are the kinds of details that can create real tension without immediately giving everything away. And because Lexi has been recast, the show has even more room to explore that unease. Abe may desperately want to believe this is the miracle he prayed for, yet still sense that something is missing in the woman standing in front of him. Theo may be overwhelmed with relief, but slowly begin noticing moments that do not feel like his mother at all. Paulina, already uneasy about EJ's involvement, may become the first one willing to say what others are too afraid to admit: that Lexi may be back, but not fully herself. And if that suspicion grows, the storyline could turn explosive very quickly. Because this is Dr. Rolfe. His work is never simple, and it is never clean. So the most disturbing possibility may be that he did not just revive Lexi. He may have altered her in ways no one understands yet. If the procedure intensified darker impulses, disrupted her emotional instincts, or changed the balance of who she is, then EJ may have created something far more dangerous than he intended. EJ wants to be remembered as the man who delivered a miracle. He wants to prove that he can succeed where no one else could. But if Lexi comes back emotionally altered, unstable, or even sinister, then this stops being a triumph. It becomes a warning, and EJ will not look like a hero. He will look like the man who forced open a door that should have remained shut. And then there is the possibility that may be the most heartbreaking of all: that this miracle is real, but only for a little while. That may be where this storyline is ultimately headed. Because even if Lexi returns, that does not mean she is meant to stay. In fact, the most devastating version of this story may be one where the experiment works just enough to restore hope before everything collapses again. Abe may finally let himself believe that loss has been reversed. Theo may allow himself to reconnect with a part of his life he thought was gone forever. They may begin rebuilding trust, love, and emotional closeness with Lexi, only to realize that whatever brought her back cannot hold. If her condition starts slipping, if her strength fades, or if the treatment begins failing over time, then this storyline becomes far more tragic than a simple failed experiment. It becomes a second goodbye. And in some ways, that could be even worse than the first. The original loss was devastating, but it was final. This time, Abe and Theo would be pulled back into hope, only to have that hope ripped away after they had already started healing. That kind of emotional reversal would feel deeply cruel, and it would leave lasting damage. It would also completely redefine EJ's role in the story. Because if Lexi's return ends in another loss, then EJ will not be remembered as the man who helped a grieving family. He will be remembered as the man who gave them hope they could not keep. Once the grief turns into anger, his intentions will not matter. Dr. Rolfe's science will not matter. What Abe, Theo, and Paulina may see is someone who made them relive the worst pain of their lives all over again. The closer EJ gets to proving the experiment worked, the more likely it feels that Salem is heading toward emotional disaster. Because on a soap like Days of Our Lives, the most painful twists often begin with hope. And if this miracle ends up being temporary, then EJ's biggest gamble will not just fail. It will leave devastation behind. That is what makes this entire story so compelling right now. It is not just about whether Lexi wakes up. It is about what that awakening truly means. Is this a miracle? A mistake? A gamble so reckless that everyone involved is about to pay the price? EJ may think he is making history. He may think he is proving that death can be challenged. But the real tragedy may be that he never stopped to ask whether he should be doing this in the first place. Because in Salem, nightmares do not always begin with failure. Sometimes they begin with success that should never have happened at all. So if EJ is celebrating now, he may want to be careful. This may not end with gratitude, praise, or triumph. It may end with heartbreak, fury, and a devastating lesson that some lines were never meant to be crossed. And if that is where Days of Our Lives is heading, then EJ's biggest gamble may be about to fail in the worst possible way.